Alright, hopefully we are back. Once again, the game seems to have, you know, seems to have, no, not the game, but the game is still running, but the stream went down once again. And I'm not sure, again, I don't know why this keeps happening, because, again, I'm just in the menu here, so it really shouldn't be an issue. You know what, maybe if I just get out of the game, that'll be fine. I mean, the menu itself is not demanding at all, so it shouldn't go down. Um, yeah, this was something that this whole stream going down thing was something that I was really never able to solve what the exact issue was. So it just keeps happening. So this will be like a sub part C to the final part of my Xenoclash playthrough. Just to talk more about my final impressions of the game and continue that. I guess for now I don't need to be in this menu if that's what's causing it. I'll switch to a full screen cam if I can. Let's see if this works. It'll take a while for it to show up here, so I don't know. I set up this full screen. Right, okay, it is working. So now I'm not running the game anymore. Just continue my final thoughts. I was in the talking about the combo system and the combat at first, and then I'll get to the other stuff I want to talk about with regards to Xenoclash 2. My final thoughts. So as far as the combo system goes, once again that special attack meter is yet another thing that limits the use of those combos in the first place, on top of the lack of difficulty and the lack of incentivization, the lack of the game really keeping those in mind, or keeping those fresh in your mind, that you can do these more elaborate combos. So with that in mind, I wish the game allowed you to delve into that stuff a little bit further. The game itself, at least as far as the main campaign, tried to foster the use of the more elaborate combos, at least a little bit, somewhat. Really, it doesn't do anything. It just kind of gives you the tools, and shows you everything you need to know in the tutorial, and then lets you figure out how you want to use it as you go forward. In theory, that sounds like, oh, it's just freeing, like you can use it however you want. However, over the course of the game, you kind of get in a rut. You kind of get too comfortable with the way you do things and the way things work, to the point where, as I said in the beginning of this discussion, the point where you do, or at least I did, I felt a little tired of the combat system as it was, and I was kind of hoping that I was going to see some more interesting stuff. Now, outside of just the straight up fisticuffs, the game does revitalize combat a little bit throughout the course by giving you those new items, the technology of the golems and their civilization. That does provide some interesting stuff that you can do in the combat. Particularly, I like the connecting the two enemies together to essentially kill two birds with one stone. That was an interesting concept to make combat a little bit more efficient. So, but I would say that those items weren't entirely enough, considering that there were only 2 of those technological things that they gave you, as well as a chain and grenades. So 4 secondary items in total that you could use to mix up combat and add to your fisticuffs. So yeah, not quite enough, I would say, to really bring up any to really change up the combat over the course of the game. But when you did get those things, they were pretty interesting, and they for at least for a brief period of time that they brought interesting changes. But then after a few combat experiences later, you go back into a standard rhythm, fall back on your standbys, what you're comfortable with in terms of the combat. So I was basically just doing standard punches, and then only later on I felt like I wanted to experiment a little bit more. But that was completely from my end. It had to be totally self-motivated. The game doesn't really do much to motivate you to use anything more than you're comfortable with. And essentially, I wish there was some way that the game would require you to do more, to get out of your comfort zone, to make you experiment with the combat a little bit more over the course. Yeah, I'm not sure what they could have done. Perhaps unlocking more items or unlocking special fisticuffs or combat abilities over the course of the game. I don't know. There are various ways I guess they could have done it, but as far as the game is now, it's basically just the whole combat system you have in the beginning. You have pretty much access to everything then and there, and it's up to you to try and learn and get better over the course of the game, and you have to be entirely self-motivated to keep on experimenting throughout the course. The game doesn't do it for you. And just for me, yeah, I kind of wish that the game did a little bit more to motivate you, and the game did more to keep things fresh. Besides just those 4 secondary items. All right, so as far as other aspects of the game, I think I already touched upon the story at the end there. I could also talk about another major thing that I kept bringing up was about the world design and how it's trying to be a lot bigger than Xenoclash 1, but I soon realized how linear a lot of the levels end up being. And despite the overall largeness of each level, as well as the branching out of the world, it just doesn't seem that much more advanced than the first game, which was a much more linear affair, going straight from one level to the next, a much more linear storytelling experience as well as progression through levels. This one, tries to make things a little bit more non-linear, to give you more side quests to do, secondary objectives that you could potentially skip. And I guess as far as side quests go, a lot of them were revolved around recruiting allies that you could use as that secondary or as a secondary ally. So you always have access to Rimat throughout the course of the game, but then there's a second slot for second ally, and you can fill that with any person you recruit in the game. So primarily the point of those secondary quests was to give you access to another person you could possibly recruit. And I think that's a pretty fair reward for those secondary quests. And those were mostly fulfilling. Besides just giving you more to do, as well as giving you more story, the reward of having that second or reward of having a potential second ally with you is pretty worth it, I would say. I'd say the most fulfilling secondary quest was probably the one involving the two adoptive sisters who end up getting captured, Daedra and Lene, in that sort of quarry area. I forget what exactly the name of those people were, but essentially you were going down a spiral canyon and beating up the peoples who live there to try and free the two adoptive sisters, and then you could recruit either of them to join you. And I think I ended up recruiting Daedra, did that, and then I kept Daedra as my secondary ally throughout the course of the rest of the game. So, plus there was a lot of backstory regarding that specific tribe, I guess you would call them. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Most involved secondary quest. Plus, there were a lot of other individual secondary quests. So I think the best part about the game for me was the way the secondary quests added onto and complemented the main storyline, as well as giving you good rewards that you can implement in the game, and make use of primarily those allies to help you with combat. So yeah, thumbs up on that. I guess the main campaign and the secondary quests, pretty good. As far as the overall level design, I guess that's where I take issue. Felt a little too linear to me. I guess the main hubs, in the center, there were largely three. You could say there's three hub areas. Those felt a little too small. Even though those were the only areas where they were wide open and not really, they were not non-linear. They were not just straight pathways. Those were also kind of the smaller areas, as if there was a limit to what the engine could render. Most of the other areas in the game that branched out from those hubs were pretty straight linear affairs, just a corridor or a straight path, or not necessarily a straight path, but it could be straight or winding, doesn't matter. But the point is that they don't branch off. They're not really branching paths. They're just singular linear paths that come out of the hub. So, and that's largely reflective of the overall experience. There isn't much in terms of choice. You can impact the narrative. The story is the story. It's not like a Mass Effect affair where there are a lot of branching paths. There's just a story and some side stuff to do if you felt like doing them. So there is some nonlinearity to the experience, but not a whole lot. And yes, it is true that the game is bigger than the first game, but I think the scope of the game being bigger is a little deceptive. It makes it feel, especially in the beginning, I was talking about in the discovery phase, I felt the game was looking pretty huge, but ultimately that proved deceptive, and the game's a lot smaller than I imagined, or a lot smaller than I felt like the game was portraying in the beginning, and also subsequently a lot more linear. So, yeah, kind of disappointing on that front, but not altogether damning. I'd say pretty good experience as far as my opinion goes. I would say that in general I did enjoy a lot of the experiences that I had. The combat system was fun while it lasted, but then towards the end of the game, the second half, I guess pretty much saw everything I needed to see. Even though it's a fairly short experience, I would say it did feel like it ran a little long and dragged at the end. But I guess I would say that the revelations that we saw at the end there did provide enough of an incentive to keep going. But basically, I saw everything I needed to see and experienced a lot of what the game offered in the first half, and after that, it was more or less spinning its wheels in terms of the interactive portion of it. The story had more interesting things to reveal, but as far as the combat goes, as I said before, and as far as exploring the world and knowing what the game had to offer on those fronts, not much left there. Not too many surprises after the first half. So yeah, the game kind of fell short of my expectations, but there's a lot. If you like Xenoclash, the first game, and like that weird experience, I'd say it's definitely worth worth playing, worth picking up, but not really a must play for me. Due to those problems I mentioned before. Combat being solid for a while, but then you fall into a rhythm. You get too comfortable with it. There's no real incentive to experiment with it, even though it is technically deep. The game doesn't really foster that depth. Doesn't really incentivize you to explore that depth. And with the story being, or with a lot of the level design and the areas being a little too linear for my tastes. Actually, I would say that bringing that back up, I would say I almost prefer the more directed experiences, the more linear experiences of Xenoclash 1, just because of how directed those were. This kind of feels like Xenoclash 2 kind of feels like a halfway point between being very non-linear and very linear. You kind of have to go all the way with it, or have to go all the way with non-linearity, with branching paths all over the place, which would, yes, that would take a lot of resources to develop. That would be a very big world to develop. But if you're going to go that direction, then you go all the way with it. Or, if you can't commit to that, then perhaps just straight up linear directed experience like the first game was is a better way to go. So, in some ways, the Xenoclash 2 does surpass the first game, especially with the more involved combat system and the better, more interesting items you come across. But I'd still say the Xenoclash 1 was at least a better game for me as a whole, as a more consistent experience. So, yeah, I guess that pretty much sums up my thoughts on the game. I'm not sure if I have anything else in mind to say. I mean, largely, you could tell over the course of the most recent parts playing through that I was kind of getting a little tired of it, and I was fully expecting the end to be near, and I was basically wanted to get to the end and finish up the game. Because I wasn't expecting a whole lot more from the experience in terms of the interactive portions. Yes, I figured that there would be more interesting stuff with the story specifically than the storytelling, and it delivered on that front, but not necessarily on the interactivity. So you could tell that my reactions there in the most recent parts of my playthrough kind of back up what I'm saying, and it sort of finalizes what I was feeling throughout those parts. So yeah, I had a good time with the game, and I guess I could say I've been ready to finish it, and I'm ready to move on from Xenoclash 2 to other things. So I guess that brings me to my announcement, and that's that I think it's time for with Xenoclash 2 being done, that this will be basically essentially the last game that I'll be streaming for a while now, and then subsequently putting on YouTube. This will be the last playthrough that I'll do for a while, and I think that's because I want to. If I want to continue doing more of these, I want to do it at a higher quality, and I want to do more with these playthroughs, and I want to elevate what I do with the sort of stream theory style that I've been doing since I played Alien Isolation when that came out, and then I did many games over the course of 2015. And now we're in 2016. I want to elevate what I do. Unfortunately, I can't commit the time and the effort at this moment to elevate it to elevate my playthroughs in terms of quality. I mean, there are a lot of things that I want to do with my streams. Perhaps, the biggest thing is probably a more consistent schedule, streaming longer when I do stream. Things like that, as well as providing a better quality level in in terms of the archives on YouTube as well. I want to bring in a little bit more editing, at least a little bit more in terms of the intros and outros, rather than just have a straight up raw uncut thing. Although that would still be a core tenet of what I would want to do with those videos, to have the uncut live experience there. That's essentially a core tenet of my stream theory style. However, I want to bring a little bit more professionalism in the presentation, I would say. That requires more time and effort that I just can't reasonably deliver right now. And I'm hoping that there, at some point in the future, that I can do that, and that's when I will bring back the stream. That's when I'll start streaming again and uploading those streams then onto YouTube as well. Also, that would require better computer equipment than I have, and that kind of relates back to the issues I've had with this stream. The fact that the stream going down, I think, largely has to do with my underpowered PC, and I don't want to. I want to be able to guarantee a level of quality with the stream, and that would require me to upgrade my PC, and I can't quite do that just yet. So when I'm able to upgrade my PC, when I'm able to put in the time and the effort into my streams and then the subsequent YouTube videos, that's when I think I'll come back. So it might take a while for me to do that. It might take a while for me to come back. But until then, I'm going to be putting my streaming on a hiatus, and there's going to be no timetable as far as when I'll be able to come back. But yeah, basically for now, that's the announcement that my streaming will be on a hiatus for the time being, and but I do fully intend to come back at some point. Even though I cannot guarantee a time for when I can come back. But yeah, when I do come back, I would like to come back in full force with much higher quality, in line with standards expected from other streamers that you see with other broadcasters, particularly with time commitment, more consistent schedule, and a longer streaming when I do stream, not just a couple times a week with a few hours worth of stream each time. I would want to go in full force like other broadcasters are able to deliver. So until I can deliver that, I've decided that it's better to put my stream on hiatus until I can achieve the standards that I want to achieve for myself. I guess I could explain why I don't just continue with my stream, with the quality that it is. Is that essentially I don't want to get. I kind of with going along with what I wanted to get with the combat out of Xenoclash 2. I don't want to get too comfortable with this format, with these standards that I'm putting on myself now. I want to elevate it, and I feel like if I just continue on with other games from here on out, then I will never be incentivized to elevate the stream, to upgrade it, to make a higher level of quality. So that's why I feel like I have to stop the stream in the form that it is, and then work on trying to raise that quality, and then come back with better quality. I don't want to get too comfortable, essentially, and I feel like if I do continue on like this, I will get too comfortable, and then those changes will never come. That's essentially why me or anyone else would decide to cut it off, even if people would want it's fine, you can stream as it is, for now. You can implement those quality upgrades later if you want, but ultimately I feel like that would just hinder me from even implementing them later on in the first place. So yeah, I want to put my efforts into working towards a time when I can come back with a higher level quality, essentially. So Right, so with that in mind, I think that's just gonna be it. I guess that's I'm definitely going to miss streaming, or the time that I cannot stream. And for anyone who tunes into this, sees this message, or has tuned in previous streams, to say thank you very much for watching. I've not just been doing this for myself. I've been doing it for anyone who tunes in and finds my input on these games valuable. So, yeah, thank you very much, and I hope to see you again in the future. I hope to come back with a much better stream. And yeah, I'm definitely gonna miss it, and I hope that it won't be too long before I come back. Yeah, I'm not sure what else I can say here. That I just regret that it has to come to this. That I wish I could just make those changes right now, and I wish I could. Fortunately, I can't. My schedule does not allow it. I really need to work on that, and not streaming will allow me to take this time to work on bettering my own life to the point where I can shift things around. I can bring a high level of quality, and I can allow for more time, be able to dedicate more time to the stream. That's essentially my goal for the foreseeable future. Once I can achieve that, I'll be back. So, all right. So this will be my final sign-off message at the end of my Xenoclash 2 playthrough. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again in the future. Later.